Hello, everybody, and welcome to this, our latest Founders on Fire podcast. And I am here with Dr. Will Hicks, who is co-founder, and I hope I get this right, Chief Scientific Officer at AirAware Labs, our sustainability tech winners from last year. Hello, Will, how are you?
Hi, Rose. Great to be here. Very happy. Yeah, brilliant.
Great. Well, we're delighted to have you on the podcast, and I'm really curious to find out a little bit more about what AirAware has been up to over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourselves and you know how it all came about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so we've built what we like to call the AirTrack Engine. So basically, most people think of engines, they think of an engine which might take you somewhere, but it generates a lot of air pollution. Ours also takes you somewhere, but it helps you to avoid the air pollution. And I think that's really important because the problem that we're trying to tackle is that air pollution is responsible for over 8 million premature deaths each year. It causes all sorts of health issues. It's a big issue, both short-term and long-term for your health. So what we've done at AirAware Labs is we built this air quality engine, which helps you to understand your exposure. We use real-time high-quality modeling. We think that the air that you are breathing is not necessarily the same air that is the equivalent of like your nearest monitoring site, or it's not the same of that of the city. So the simple idea behind what we built is that very, very, very few people know what they're breathing in personally, and of those that do know, you're often exposed to very different air quality depending on your activities or where you are by location. And then when you breathe that air in, you have different vulnerabilities. So Rose, me and you have very, very different vulnerabilities potentially. We also have different goals. We may have different outcomes that we're looking to have. And we believe that understanding what your air is is the first step to help you to reduce that exposure, and understanding and linking that to your health outcomes. So yeah, a bit about me. I completed my PhD from Imperial College London. I was measuring traffic emissions in the real world. So I was doing measurements of air quality at busy roadside locations in London, Birmingham, and Manchester, and looking at what each of these, what vehicles which pass the traffic sites are generating. And then I was quantifying what electric vehicles would have on those emissions. So they're no longer going to have emissions from the exhaust, but they're generating non-tailpipe emissions, a lot heavier electric vehicles. So that was my PhD at Imperial. I then did a postdoc looking at indoor air quality. So I mean, we spend 90% of the time indoors. You and I are both indoors at the moment, and so I was, as part of a project, we were looking at quantifying different sources of indoor air pollution using measurements. But I think through that work, I became really aware that there's so much great science going on. And like my research was a small part of that, but there are a lot of academics out there which are doing some incredible studies. But just wasn't really getting to people. And I felt that like more and more with all this research, you just felt that like all this incredible science going on, but there's that missing gap of the people who really matter, the individuals. They're not understanding what they're breathing in. The super sites that we were doing the measurements in London, Birmingham, Manchester was incredible. It was really scientific material, but that air quality data just wasn't getting to the people who need it the most. It's going to a scientific journal, of which maybe some policymakers maybe read it if we're lucky, but the individuals who are living in the cities weren't able to understand what they were doing. And you could also see how much it was changing from street to street and from hour to hour. So different periods of time would have really different levels of air quality concentrations. So yeah, I think that was kind of one of the key motivators. So Louise and I met my co-founder Louise Thomas, and we about 2.5 years ago, we had our 2.5-year anniversary last week, and we established back in January 2024. We built a company to really help to personalize this air quality data, give people their insights through a mobile app, through the engine, to understand and reduce their exposure. We also deliver like an engine. It kind of delivers lots of different products. So as well as the AirTrack mobile app, which we've got, we deliver it through an enterprise platform and also through an API. So ultimately
So tell us a little bit about how that would work, because obviously I think we probably all get that you can, I could be sitting here, I'm looking on the app and I can say, oh my goodness, what amazing air quality we have in downtown Surbiton today. Just out for context, so it turns out that Will is actually probably about half a mile from where I am right now. So weirdly, we're doing this on Zoom. So hey-ho, that's the life. But how would that work in an enterprise platform sort of scenario?
Yeah, I mean, so it kind of depends on the company, but what we'd love to have is more and more companies sign up to AirTrack Enterprise, and then their staff would download the app. So when you're commuting to and from work, it's often when you're exposed to the highest amounts of the levels of air pollution. And with the app, you could then get the insight to know perhaps to change a small element of your route, maybe take a side street, and you could reduce your exposure by 40 to 50%. And then the employee gets access to the app, the premium version of the app, and the employer gets insights about what their staff are getting exposed to. And then they can also look at things like inside the office. So obviously when they arrive in the office, generally it might well be that it's a lot cleaner, the air, but it might not be. So you might be installing purifiers for the company to really help improve that overall experience, so that when they're at the office, you can have a lot better air quality, and that improves productivity, obviously health. And then I think that's one of our really exciting product lines. I think we are still kind of getting to grips and piloting with a few different people for AirTrack Enterprise. We've got a pilot actually in the Philippines, which we've done, which was really exciting because it is a global app. So we're a Surbiton, but we've got users all over the world. But we've also looked at another product line is Ascent, so working with clinicians. So if you're for the respiratory clinicians, they have their patients who might have asthma, and the app gives them also the similar level of insight. But then also for the clinician, they're able to talk through one of the reasons why they may be getting more symptoms over the past month or so, and it's because they may have had high levels of air pollution, or and with that, you can also disaggregate between different kinds of pollutants. So nitrogen dioxide may be worse if you've got asthma, whereas PM2.5 might be worse if you've got COPD. So it depends also on the condition. But it's kind of like that level of personalization, I think, has a huge opportunity with healthcare and clinicians. So really excited to, again, launch that. And we've been working with some incredible clinicians to try and get the app out to people, but it's slow, the healthcare sector, similar to enterprise. So we've really focused initially on the events, I think, as like our go-to-market, and they've been incredible. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. There was a little bit of background noise, so I wanted to be muted. So you've talked a little bit about the events, and you've talked about a really exciting project in the Philippines. Can you talk a little bit more about, I think the healthcare angle, I think for, obviously respiratory illnesses can be devastatingly, significant for people. I mean, I'm very fortunate not to suffer from asthma, but I could imagine it's probably one of the most frightening things when you're having a very severe attack. There are certain people who perhaps would benefit from getting some kind of, alarm or alert when it gets to a certain level, is like, can you move to somewhere that perhaps is a little bit more, suitable and generous to your condition. But could we talk a little bit more, I thought, about what you're doing in the Philippines? Because I'm a bit curious about this, because this sounds like it could have a few interesting angles there.
Yeah, I mean, so the Philippines, with a kind of an office in Cebu, and we provided AirTrack to the 50 staff. And in the Philippines, you have different kinds of air pollution to the UK. Traffic's a really, really important source there, like most of the world it is, but you have other sources. It's a coastal city, so generally you have quite good dispersion from the winds. But yeah, we've been giving the staff access to AirTrack, and they were able to look in, as they were commuting to and from the office or to the gym, they were getting cleaner routes. And it was incredible because it's like a different culture in the Philippines. But it was great to see how, once they understood how the app worked, works to kind of see how you can get that behavior change. And I think Asia for us is a really exciting market. We've looked quite a lot at India and China, and we think that because of the air pollution and the concentrations there are obviously in a different magnitude to what's in the UK. I think for us it's really exciting to look at America, but then at the same time in the US you have the wildfires and different kinds of sources there. So,
gosh, well, we're having them in Europe as well at the moment, so it's becoming something that's more and more common, isn't it? And I can't imagine how frightening that is, but particularly for people who have respiratory conditions.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of emissions in the UK, like traffic's going down a lot, but as you say, with climate change, you've got things like wildfires going up massively. So, and certain emissions in certain countries are going up. So it's definitely not a problem which is going away. And I think for us, it's also about linking it on that individual level. So for each person, as I say, it could be very, very different, the impact of breathing in toxic air pollution. And what we're really excited about is linking up with things like wearables, so that you know what your heart rate is, you know your heart rate variability. And then you also know the exposure from our AirTrack engine, and we're able to kind of say that if you have asthma, your heart rate variability is a lot more susceptible, and your heart rate is a lot more susceptible to air pollution. And so you can almost have that kind of preventative element. And people often don't realize how asthma is such a serious condition. It's a real killer. And it's also incredibly prevalent. Like 1 in 7 people in the UK have asthma. So I think it's being able to prevent it as much as possible, trigger symptoms which come from asthma, and working as well as part of the AirTrack engine, the API, we can work with preventative inhalers, so that you can know when you're most at risk. You have your wearable, you have your air pollution exposure, and then we could give you the insights to say that now's the time to probably take your preventative inhaler because you're at increased levels of risk. So there's lots of like really exciting ways we can go, and we've got this engine, and we're really excited to use it in the different areas.
Yeah, we can certainly see there's an awful lot of applications. And I guess when you've talked about businesses sort of having their employees, having the ability to track their exposure and look at alternative routes to minimize that. And also, particularly, as you say, you assume that indoors, you're not going to be as impacted by by pollutants, but there's obviously pollutants that can be indoors rather than outside, which people may not be aware of. So that's definitely an interesting thing. Does it do anything around, sorry to go slightly off track, but when I think of things that people react to respiratory wise, things like pollen, I mean, is that stuff that also will be triggering asthma attacks potentially?
Yeah, I mean, pollen, we have pollen data on the app, forecasts. The data isn't quite as granular as the air pollution data, but we have from an hourly basis, we're able to say when the best time is to do an activity or that kind of thing. And yeah, we've got, people who've got hay fever this time of year, it's particularly vulnerable. So that's a strong thing which we were demanded from. But you mentioned indoor air pollution, and you're right that there are lots of different sources of air pollution indoors. But we partnered up with some incredible indoor purifier companies and sensor companies. And so that on the AirTrack app, you can purchase a purifier or a sensor, and you can get indoor measured data. We can also model the data inside, but it depends on what your behavior is. So if you're cooking or you're cleaning, it's quite hard for us to predict whether you're doing that particular activity. But with an indoor sensor or purifier, passively, the data can go into AirTrack, and we can understand based on your geolocation what your indoor data is. Then we can see what the pollen levels are like outside, or what the traffic levels of the air pollution is, and we might make a recommendation like to open up the window or to turn your purifier on, or that kind of insight. So I think there's lots which can change the behaviour, and there's so many different things to think about. So having like AirTrack as your coach, so to speak, for air quality, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, you've talked about, setting up the business with Louise, your co-founder, and it's very new. You only just celebrated your 2.5-year anniversary or birthday, whichever way you like to look at it. So from that perspective, this is still growing very much, and obviously you're looking at what's available. But we didn't talk about the events, because I think for you, that's a great way, as you said, of exposure for what you're doing. It's also very important for events to be seen to be, ensuring that routes are the least polluted, not impacting the local environment unduly, etc. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you've done around sort of mainly sporting events, and maybe what might be coming down the tracks, if you pardon the pun.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's probably one of the moments that we're most proud of is providing air quality data to the London Marathon, because I think preceding that, we've gone through a lot of kind of people telling us that no one's ever going to pay for this data. It's like we'd had a lot of challenges. I think being a founder, you go through those challenges. But when we had the team from London Marathon Events come to us and say that they were in need of air pollution data for last year's London Marathon, it was an incredibly proud moment providing that air quality data. We were so happy to be able to do that, have that opportunity. And I think because it's such a big event, everyone, particularly for us living in London, everyone knows about London Marathon. I think they have like a crazy number of applications, and everyone
always amazingly oversubscribed, aren't they?
Indeed, yeah. So yeah, being able to provide air quality data for the elites. So we offered the elites who were staying in the accommodation for the event, we offered them cleaner routes so that they could go to Hyde Park or wherever they wanted to train beforehand. They could find cleaner ways of getting there. And then on the day we offered, we showed what the air quality was along the route. The preceding days as well, to give an idea of what it was. And it was really interesting seeing how the air quality across the day changed, like comparing how Sebastian Saw, who did it in under 2 hours, how he was exposed to different levels of air pollution. We actually did some analysis. I did compared with my dad, who was running the marathon. He did it in about 6 hours, so completely two ends of the spectrum. But it's really interesting.
He was just doing it so you had a really big span of data for you to work with. He was going to go a lot faster, but he thought, you know what, I'll stretch it out for 6 hours, then they can see how I was doing with my air quality.
But yeah, it was interesting also, like the different breathing rates and the different concentrations. It was an amazing kind of understanding of at the start of the race, PM 2.5 concentrations when Sebastian started were a lot higher, and then they dropped down quite quickly. But Sebastian sprinting is using up all of his lung capacity to go incredibly quick through under 2 hours, and he was breathing in a lot different air pollution to my dad, who started 2 hours later, about 11 o'clock, I think. So Sebastian had actually finished by the time he started. But so the PM 2.5 concentrations had dropped a lot. But then the ozone, which is something which is associated with running as being something which slows down your running pace a lot more, and it comes out when the sunlight comes out. It's like a secondary pollutant which reacts with nitrogen dioxide to generate, it's called ozone. And the ozone dosage that he took in was significantly higher than Sebastian. So you had all these different like intricacies, and it was really, really great exploring the data. But yeah, for us, that was an incredible experience. We then also just provided data to the UK Athletics for the London Diamond League, and that was a different kind of thing because there's 50,000 spectators at the event, so it's great to be able to showcase air pollution at the event for spectators, but also the elites, because we often in our pitch decks when we're raising money, we talk about someone called Georgia Bell. She's someone who's been incredible these last couple of seasons, but when we spoke to her before she really hit her highs, and she was saying what a problem air pollution was when she's training for her events at the time. I think she was semi-professional, and she was saying what a problem air pollution was. Yeah, it was. But she's now doing amazing on the Diamond League. But beforehand, when we were speaking to her, she was saying what a problem air pollution was when she was training. So it's kind of like a full circle, being able to provide air quality data to the event that she's then also being an elite athlete at. And we'd spoken to her a couple of years before. Talking about what a problem it was training in London, and how she's doing 130 miles each week, running and cycling, and she was just she needed a tool which basically helped her to avoid the air pollution during that training in London. And then in the Diamond League, I'd say we also had a stand at the at the London Stadium, and with a stand, we were playing like a version of beer pong, which was called we called it air pong. So it's kind of a way of getting awareness. Like the different table tennis balls with different kinds of pollutants. So we named each table tennis ball NO2, PM 2.5, O3, PM 10, and then people had to throw the ball into the cup. But yeah, I think we'll probably stick to being a tech startup. It was was a good fun thing of getting engagement. But yeah, it is difficult to get that awareness to mass participants. So another thing we're really looking at is the gamification element of building AirTrack and making it like leaderboards on the app, so that when you go for a run and you do activity, you can see on your leaderboard how you compare with your friends or family, and it makes it like earn points for avoiding air pollution exposure. That's something we're bringing into the app, and again, it's really, yeah. And then I think for us, the next exciting event is the European Championships in Birmingham. So we'll be providing air pollution data to the elites, which is going to be a big event in August. So that's really exciting as well. That's kind of a couple of weeks away.
Fantastic. So lots going on. So anything else that's coming down the tracks? You've obviously had some funding. What's next? What are you looking? Are you looking to raise some additional capital? What kind of partnerships are you looking for now?
Yeah, I mean, we're raising a £200,000 bridge round. We've got about £90,000 left. SCIS still available. So it's looking for investment. We'll probably do a bigger seed round maybe next year. Looking for partners for our API. So we've just built a brand new hyperlocal model. So the next generation of our air quality model, and it's fully global this time. So air quality across Africa, every continent. Previously, we had some countries were missing. So it's really exciting now to be able to offer air quality any country in the world at hyperlocal scale. So we're implementing that, and we're now really excited to get people to access and trial with the API. We've got some so that the data can go into their platforms. So we've got some exciting kind of people who are using the AirTrack app, who are doing some amazing expeditions. Like someone's going from the top of North America to the bottom of South America, tracking their air quality alongside migratory birds. And it's just like amazing to see people do this and start seeing how their air pollution exposure is impacting like their performance and raising the awareness and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think
so there could be a role in sort of nature conservation and those types of things as well. So because obviously it's not just humans who are impacted by the air pollution; it's everybody who's got lungs, all of the mammals and reptiles and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, birds are kind of at a different layer, a different height, so it's an interesting thing. But they've also their kind of lungs. They've got super efficient lungs, so that they're breathing in oxygen when they're breathing in and breathing out. But it means that there's potentially more uptake of air pollution as you're flying. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's really interesting stuff with animals as well.
Every day's a school day here for Rose. I did not know that. Ooh, right. Okie dokie. So tell us what winning the award meant for you, because I know you were all very excited about that.
Yeah, we were. I mean, I think we saw. I mean, for us, it was at a time when we were really, really delighted to have that traction. It was a great kind of award, which really meant a lot to us. We were very excited. I've been also looking at some alumni and there's some incredible companies who've also won it before us. So it's really great. And listen, I think the opportunity to come on the podcast is obviously a brilliant thing as well. But I think it gives trust. You know, you're trying to get, as an early stage startup, trying to get stakeholders to be trusting in you, and we're obviously confident in our own credentials, but having a third party like the Tech Trailblazer have the award, it was like really great. It gave us that element of trust which we wouldn't otherwise. It opened doors, I guess, in a way.
Well, that we're trying to support all you guys who are slogging away with your brilliant ideas, trying to get some traction. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Because, you know, the area that you're in, there is probably, and I don't know, and I'm going to bow to your expertise on this, but there must be a lot of regulatory developments and advances that are requiring, you know, businesses, governments, organizations in general to be more mindful of these types of things.
Yeah, I mean, there are, and I think one of the most exciting ones for us in the short term is this Athletics for a Better World certification. So if you if you're doing an event and you want sustainability credentials as part of the World Athletics events, having air pollution data is really important. So I think for us, being able to get out to events who are World Athletics accredited to provide a really scalable, low cost, effective solution to that is great. And I think just generally, I think having people download the app and play around with it would be brilliant, to test it out and to iterate for us, so we can iterate and give us feedback.
Great. Sounds fantastic. Well, we're going to be looking forward to hearing more about how AirAware Labs is progressing, and good luck with all the work that you're doing for the European Championships. That sounds like it's going to be a really interesting, and I'm sure some very interesting data that will come out of that. And good luck with all the other things that you are. I'm sure you couldn't tell us about everything. But yeah, and it's great to meet you, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Rach, for having me. It's been brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate you listening. And thanks again to Will for taking the time to share all that they're up to at AirAware Labs. This is the Tech Trailblazers Founders on Fire. My name is Rose Ross, and I'm the Chief Trailblazer here at the awards. And give us a follow, find out what we're up to, and yeah, keep tuned in to our news flashes, because I'm sure we'll be hearing more from our friends at AirAware Labs about what they're doing over the coming months and years. Thanks very much. Bye-bye now.